Cool. I think we can begin. So today's topic is. Today's topic is Jiří Staniševský's GitHub Copilot and Salsita tips and tricks. Jirka, go.
Hello, hello. So it's going to be a interesting improvisation. But before we go to live demo, I got some slides for you. So GitHub Copilot at Salsita or anywhere else, basically. Guys. So you probably know that we are already starting piloting with Copilot, basically starting to use it on some of the projects, a couple of projects in Salsita, and we don't have yet that much experience with it, or people don't have it, but I've been using it for a couple of months now, and I really like it. So I would like to give you my opinionated view on Copilot and maybe some tips and tricks on how you can use it. So what is it? What is, by the way, a disclaimer, it's gonna be pretty like developer focused thing. So sorry for all the artists here and managers. Anyway, but at least the introduction can be interesting for you. So what is it? It's basically a smart code completion, right? I mean, every IDE in the world was always saying that they have the smartest code completion, but this is really smart. This is basically because it's built on large language models. So the model that powers Copilot is called Codex. It's something that they built, let's say, on top of GPT-3. For those who know what it means, it has a context size of 8,000 tokens, which is not much, but it's not so few. And you're using it through an IDE plugin. IDE on this for no developers, that's basically the editor where you are editing your code. So currently it supports all the JetBrains, most of the JetBrains products. Surprisingly, it also supports Vim, Visual Studio, but primarily the focus is on Visual Studio Code, and all the super fresh beta, alpha, preview features are always available in Visual Studio Code, which is a shame because I'm using WebStorm. And so how does it work? As any kind of other code completion suggestion, so basically you are writing and it suggests what comes next. At least in WebStorm and in Visual Studio Code, it suggests this automatically, so you don't even need to initiate the suggestions. It just completes whatever you write. And it uses so-called neighboring tabs algorithm, which decides what context is being fed to the large language model. If you're speaking about context, that's basically when you are using ChatGPT and whatever you provide as a prompt and whatever the machine replied with earlier, and also some things that are hidden from you, which instructing the model to perform something. So that's all called context. And then the plugin in the editor is actually constructing the context or the prompt, and then sending context is even more because it also contains the results that are being returned. But anyway, it constructs the prompt and sends it to this large language model. The large language model returns some suggestions, which are then sent to the IDE, and the user is able to accept or decline that suggestion. At some modes, it also returns more than one suggestion, so you can choose which one suits you better. So what is it good for? I mean, the overall vibe on the internet, whenever I start searching for some information, it's always like, this controversial discussion whether it is actually so clever that it can code for you or instead of you. And some people say yes, some people say no. But what is really true, I mean, it's not really coding for you, it's typing for you more or less. So it's basically making you faster. Yeah, so that's my impression from what it does, right? So I would probably be able to implement everything that I implement using Copilot. Maybe in some cases I would even implement it differently, not saying better, but it really helps me. I mean, imagine how helpful it is to get a suggestion for a class property or whatever, right? So this is on steroids, basically. So it helps you complete pieces of code without typing much. And that helps with, obviously, with the speed, and also helps with reducing distractions, because you have a fault, right? So you start coding the fault, and then you are burdened by this mundane task of actually expressing your idea in the code and writing it, and then somehow the initial idea is, so pushed into the background. And then once you're done with it, it needs to come back, and you need to follow up on that idea. So obviously, if you can avoid, losing the focus, it helps. It helps a lot. And the shorter the window is between thinking about the next step, and also the better, right? Because then you don't lose the thought. And that makes my coding much more enjoyable. And yeah, occasionally it actually surprises me with some suggestions which are clever and which I wouldn't have thought about probably. So even though it's, in most cases, it's somehow wrong, it can be pretty good as well, pretty right. But you will see in the live demo. So what it is not good for? It's not good for solving complex problems. I mean, imagination that you say, okay, write me an API that does this and this and that, and it does something. It usually works, but it's a mess, and you need to polish it a lot and rewrite things and stuff. So that's not what it is really good for. So don't worry, it will not replace you yet in the current stage. And it's not good with working with recent libraries. Why? Because the language model has been taught on trained on some data which are cut off in the past, right? So they basically prepare the data set, they run it through millions of hours of training, and then we have the model, and that is outdated. I mean, it was outdated at the moment when they prepared it. So yeah, so don't think that there will be top modern libraries that were released yesterday or a month ago or a year ago, and Copilot will know how to use them, will know the APIs and stuff. So don't think about it. That's not working. Fortunately, it is able to pick up from how you use them. So if you use the new libraries, it knows how to use them later. So when it's suggesting some new code using the same libraries, it can basically learn from you and start following the style of coding. That said, the following code style is kind of limited now, because it uses this neighboring tabs, which I didn't explain earlier, so I can do it now. So imagine that you have a couple of tabs open in your editor, and it should use those tabs to produce that context for the large language model. But it doesn't use all of them. It uses some hidden obfuscated algorithms which are looking at the piece of the code or where your cursor currently is. It looks before, it looks after, it then scans the whole file somehow, and then decides, okay, maybe this file or this part of this file should be also included because it seems to be relevant, and it does it for all the open tabs, and then creates that gibberish and sends it to the large language model, and that it processes. So don't imagine that you will open GitHub Copilot on your huge code base with thousands of files, and suddenly it will learn how to do everything. That's not working. They are working on something like that, but it's yet not available. We'll speak about it later. And now, demo time. So I wanted to tease you with some very great, suggestion from Copilot. So I wrote this comment, the first line, and then it really surprised me that all the other lines are suggested by Copilot, and all of them are pretty lame. But the reality is better. So I need to. I don't see the tabs open. That's bad. Anyway, so let's jump into some coding. So let's start with simple stuff. So we imagine that we have this model defined here, and that we also have somewhere this update function. Basically, it's like a current update function which you can chain into a flow. So we can start implementing the flow actually. Export function flow. Oh, cool. It knows what I want to do. And it's a little bit verbose since it's using returns everywhere. But it kind of works. So if I don't like the suggestion, you know, by the way, I mean, maybe I should have explained what happens here. So what happens here, this gray thing that you see is a suggestion from Copilot, actually. That's not nothing. It's nothing I wrote. It's nothing the IDE itself is recommending, but it's the AI who is doing it. So if I don't like that, I have a choice to actually also display multiple suggestions. It takes a while. Takes a while longer than without this. Okay. This looks a little bit more concise. So we now have one liner. And I think it should work, at least briefly looking at it. So that's the point of this update function. I just wanted to demonstrate why we need it. And then we go to, let's say we want to do some modifications on the person object. So I want to, okay, fair enough, but that's not what I want. I want export function. You see what I'm doing here? I mean, it's suggesting something, and I'm overriding basically the decision by them by suggesting more what it should suggest, right? So I'm starting to type the code, and it adapts because it gets more context. On the internet, you will find some guides on how to do prompting using comments. So I could write here a function that updates a name of a person via an update function. It should get it and should also do it, but it's annoying. I mean, who wants to write comments? I mean, I want to write code, right? So I mean, you want to use it in this way. So I'm saying, okay, export function update, or let's say age person. Cool. So it's not exactly what I want because it's actually setting the age, right? I want the person to age, to get older. So I can just either use the comment, or I can just improve the readability of my code. And suddenly, whoop, it got it, right? It knows that I want to age by the person by some increment. So that's a key thing, I think, that you should all get from this. If you want the Copilot to suggest the right suggestions, then you need to make sure your code is readable, right? And that it's clear and explicit. And I wouldn't bother really with the comments, because you can actually do it the other way around. So look, which is also cool. Come on. So I start the comment, and it says return a function that updates a person by the given amount. Thank you very much. And I have the comments, right? Which is easier than to write the text and then try force Copilot to actually suggest the implementation. Now let's do another one. Export function. Grow person, right? That's cool. That's exactly what I want. So I want the person to grow by a certain height. Right. Sounds good. But what is the height? Is it in centimeters or in inches? Let's make it specific. Okay. So now obviously this is not working anymore. So, whoops. Come on. And it's in inches. Fine, works well. But is the input in inches or is it in centimeters? We don't know. So let's say centimeters. Okay, now, again, this is not the right solution. So what we do, we display more solutions, more suggestions. And by the way, this is not only because it suggested something wrong, but because also the ID, I just learned when I was playing with this, with the preparation for the Browmac, it caches a lot. So it caches the context, it caches the suggestions and everything. So if you make a subtle change somewhere, it's still giving the old answers. If you remove a code, for example, and you try suggesting something, it seems to be suggesting the exact code that you just removed, which is not always good. But I mean, you can always use this toolbar where it suggests more suggestions, and then you can actually use it. So now we even have a conversion here, right? We can go further and say, okay, there's a unit, right? So what happens now if I say there is a unit? Come on, unit is either centimeter or inch. And this, of course, is increment. So I actually suggested something. Let's see. 18 inches. If it's a centimeter, then it's an increment divided by whatever. So we're getting inches, and otherwise we're getting directly the inches. It seems to be correct. So this is when you are creating some simple functions, right? And I mean, we don't need to go to the car updates because it's the same thing. We should probably skip that. Okay, let's now go to hints. I mean, I spoke about not using the comments, but sometimes it's useful when you have a big function that does something and you don't want to create some functions, you know, and you want to instruct the tool to do something. So we can do it like this, and then we can start typing. So let's say I want to. No. I mean, we need to start here. Okay, let's follow this. So so let's start typing. So whatever, combustion cars, that looks good. So we first filter out all the cars that are combustion cars, right? Based on the model here. Fine, and then combustion car power is just, that's weird. Okay, it does it in multiple steps. And now we suddenly have the average, right? I don't like this much, so let's just do the reduce right away. So, and we're done. And now what does it say about the electric cars? Okay, electric cars. So look, see that I didn't need to point it to the right direction in the next step, right? Because it's also already taking the context from the previous code. So it knows that I want to do it in one line. So it suggests it's in one line, right? And then if we want to do something more complicated, so this says remove cars until the average power of combustion car is equal to the average power of electric cars. That's not a complicated algorithm. Okay, that's complete nonsense. Why does it do it? It suggested better solution last time. It's not entirely deterministic. I mean, it is kind of deterministic under the hood, but depends on all the context, your movement in the ID and whatever. Okay. Well, this looks better than what I got last time. No. Still complete nonsense. It's using a function which doesn't exist. Oh, come on. Okay, that's not going well. Anyway, yeah, earlier it suggested basically removing, yeah, I know what is it? Combustion cars. Okay, whatever. It was funny back then, but it's not funny now. So don't think about it. Anyway, it's not possible. It's not really easy to solve this task by just letting it do it. You need to guide it. So you would need to do some whiles and things, and then it would probably pick it. We can probably try. So while, I mean, I don't want to embarrass myself. While, yeah, okay, this is what it does. But it's kind of combustion to remove, whatever. I mean, that's gonna be for a long time. Let's go to the next step, where I think it's really, really cool and handy. Sample data, right? So you have this model. Oh, come on. It works better than before. Why does it work better than before? Okay. Spoiling the fun. Anyway, let's pretend that it suggests this. Right? So I have a car, and it's pretty annoying. And I can do next car, focus, whatever. Fine. It's annoying, right? Because it's I need to tap multiple times the tap thingy to actually get to the next car. So what I can do, I can give it a hint. That's what it did it actually automatically, but that's what I wanted to show you. I give it a hint again. I say, okay, I want it in one line, right? So and next it's gonna suggest the full car on one go. Okay, it's too much. It's too much force. So now we can either try doing it this way, saying, okay, let's do one car per each make. Come on. That's not working. So let's give it a more hint. So let's do Hyundai. Come on, you stupid guy. This is what always happens when you're doing live demo. Anyway, what? It was Kia. Okay, now, no, come on. One care. Okay, maybe that's the quiz. One model, let's say. One model per each make. Oh, go to hell. Okay, that's not working. Anyway, I still like the possibility to create the sample data, but it should probably work a little bit better. Okay, well, you can take it as a homework and try to do it. I don't know why it doesn't work now. It worked 2 times when I tried last time. Anyway, so that's one nice. Okay, well, it doesn't even suggest any electric car. Electric, whatever. Petrol. So now another thing which I find really handy. I mean, this is very simple. So I say constant combustion cars, right? This is something you already saw in the previous example, but it's really super handy. When you basically say it's a very easy thing to code, but it's time-consuming, it's long and everything, and then you always need to find the right name for that element or whatever. So this just does it for you. So you just say, okay, I want electric cars, right? And boom, and it's electric. Or I want only diesel cars, right? Or I want Dieselgate cars. It's clever. But it should also probably use only the diesel cars there. So that's about the sample data. Now, what next? What next? I mean, the graph is probably too complicated. Okay, let's think about tests. I mean, that's kind of an eternal question. Does it write test for you? It does, kinda. So let's first implement something. So we have a function here called parse video file name. Just takes a file name of a video file, like you know, MKV or whatever you download from Uložto. So then it parses it and it suggests what's the name of the movie or series and what's the season, what's the episode. So it should understand things quite well, I think. So okay, that's not what I want exactly. So let's just point it to the right direction. Okay, yeah, that sounds fun. Fine. Movie regex, episode regex, sounds good. What's this T thing? What is T? There's no T. Okay. I also don't like the named groups because it messes with typing. So let's just make them like index based. And then let it suggest the next one. It uses the index based, which is better. And now let it implement the stuff. So if, that's a waste of time. Okay, no, that's not a good stuff. So let's say movie match. Yeah, that's exactly what we want to do. If movie match sounds good. If no, const episode match sounds relatively good. And finally, throw, which is my favorite stuff. I mean, throwing errors. Who wants to write an error message which is meaningful? There are 5 errors in a single function. This guy wants to do it, and he does it well. So now we have the function. Should probably work. What about the test then? So I have a test suite prepared here for this function. So let's start with what it suggests. Parses movie file names. Okay, sounds good. What do you want to do? Come on. Expect parse with the matrix equal to. That's good. Sounds good. What next? Come on, that's the idea. Episode file names. Fine. Come on. Okay, that's weird. I've never heard about the matrix series, but whatever. Throws an error for unknown file names. Fine. What does it do here? Come on. Don't make us wait. A second episode. Okay, why is this broken? Okay, that's bad. That's the same one like the before one, right? I mean, I don't see any difference. Do you see any difference? Okay. And now it's stuck already. I mean, again, it performed better when I tried to play with it for the first time, but it needs hints, right? So let's say throws on non-video file names. Come on. Are you stupid? Okay, you're embarrassing me. Throws on invalid episode names. Okay, there is an edge case. An edge case is should parse file names, whatever, with numbers without being zeros. Yeah, that's what I want. And now this stuff should work, but it doesn't because I know the implementation is wrong. At least it was before. So you can write the tests, you can use the machine to prepare the implementation of the test, but it's so stupid in preparing the test cases, right? So it never will do it for you, not in this version. I'm pretty sure that GPT-4 would be much better in this. but I'm not sure that we will ever get GPT-4 into Copilot because it would take ages to get the suggestions, and it would probably ruin the whole business of OpenAI or GitHub. But we'll see. Maybe we will. Anyway, so that's about the specs, the tests. How much time do we have? Is anyone aware of time? Okay, so I should wrap up, right? Anyway, so there's there are endless possibilities to explore this, to play with it. As you can see, you will always be surprised because it always gives different answers, even if you prepare 2 times. So let's get back to the presentation to finalize it. So my summary of how I like working with Copilot is, yeah, I mean, it's super handy when it's finishing whatever you started. So don't write prompts and comments. I don't know, I never found it really super helpful. It is helpful if you don't know how to approach something. Maybe if you want it to suggest how to use Lodash for something. Lodash is pretty old, so it will be there and it will work. So then, yeah, then you can type a comment saying use Lodash to group these, and it will suggest group by, right? So that's handy. Again, but try rather improving the code, making it more readable and descriptive, and then Copilot will thank you, but also your colleagues will thank you. So if it doesn't do what you want, just keep on coding, and at some point it usually catches and it suggests the right thing. I didn't show you much about the error messages, which is pretty lame because it's super helpful. But imagine that you have an optional parameter to a function, or somehow you get a function which is looking for a person by ID, so you get the ID, you do a lookup in the database, and then you want to do something with that person, but obviously it's nullable, right? So you say if not, and then it already does. If not person, then throw an error, person not found by ID, whatever, and it prepares a pretty descriptive and useful error message. Unit tests, you have seen it can help, but it's not really for free. Yeah, sample data didn't work out well, but I love that. And we didn't get to refactoring, but it would be like for another half an hour. So that's very helpful. I mean, you saw that it was picking the context from the rest of the file. So if you have a function which is written in one way, and then you want to aside create a same function which is written in different way, or you want to split it into multiple functions, it really can very well pick what is already there, adapt it so it matches the new style that you want to create. And then I mean that's everything about the Copilot as it is right now. Just a couple of words about what's planned, what they are working on already. So let's start with Copilot Labs. Basically, that's an extension to Visual Studio Code where you can ask it to explain certain piece of code. So you just select the code, you say explain, it does it bullets what the code does. It's like a transcript of the code into human readable language, which I don't find that much helpful. I mean, it's like bullets for every line, basically. And it also is somehow able to translate between different languages. I mean, like programming languages, and that also doesn't work very well. Then there is Copilot Chat, which is something which I'm really enthusiastic about, because you can imagine as a ChatGPT which is integrated into your IDE and which also knows about the context. So it knows about the files that you have open, right? So you can ask questions about specific pieces of your code without copy pasting it to ChatGPT. I'm not sure. They are currently using only. I'm not sure if they are using Codex or they are most likely using GPT-3 because it's fast, but it's also not so clever. But I assume that this would be definitely using GPT-4 in the future, and it would be very powerful. Copilot for pull requests. So, there are tools in GitHub that you can do code review. You can draft a description of the PR. So if there are changes, it will draft whatever the changes do. Not sure how good it will be. What sounds interesting is Copilot for docs. It's supposed to help you navigate through documentation of certain libraries, right? So you can use ChatGPT for that. But again, there is this problem with outdated information. And here they somehow promise to look up the up-to-date information. I'm assuming they are going to be doing some semantic search and feeding the up-to-date documentation to the large language model, and then it will spit out a specific answer to your specific question, which could be cool. But what I'm most excited about is this Copilot for your code base, which is basically how they are trying to mitigate this issue that you have only a couple of files always fed to the language model. So again, they want to use some kind of indexing, so they would like to scan through the whole code base, split it into many chunks, and annotate the chunks, or somehow index them by meaning. So who knows what embeddings are? So they would use basically semantic embeddings for the pieces of the code, and then whenever you are trying to get a suggestion, they would look up that piece of code, even though it's nested 5,000 directories within wherever, and it would suggest a code that matches that code style, which is something I think when it works, if it works, it will be cool. As I said, I don't really believe that we will have GPT-4 powered Copilot itself. Probably would be too slow. I don't know. I don't want to presume anything. They didn't find any information about that. They are mentioning that Copilot X will be using GPT-4, but Copilot X is this. This is like a group of additional tools. It's not like an evolution of the Copilot itself. It's basically spreading to other areas. And there are others, like voice. So you can talk to your IDE instead of typing. Let's see. I mean, apparently it is a future. It is the future, right? So in the future, I assume people won't be writing that much code. They will be mostly like designing stuff, and then the machine would take care of implementing it. And then if you can only design, then maybe you can only speak to that machine, which makes sense. Copilot for command line interfaces is basically that you tell the Copilot is this tool what you want to do, and it suggests a prompt or command, right? And then you can say, okay, yeah, that's it, and it executes the command. So I don't know, you wanna change a remote of your GitHub. So you don't remember the command, so you say, Copilot, tell me, change origin URL of my GitHub, Git repository to whatever, and it suggests the exact command, and you can execute it. Which is cool. Copilot Radar, that's somehow they are trying to more smartly understand the dependencies in the code. So now you have things like go to definition and show usages and stuff like that. And this should be smarter and should somehow show you wherever your piece of code, influences the code, basically. Well, let's see. So if you want to follow these, there are these links here. This is GitHub Next and GitHub Copilot X, and they are updating it there. You can also subscribe into the waitlist, and you get notified once it's available. And that's it. So some final numbers. This is from GitHub itself. I mean, it's a marketing number, right? So they say that many developers are satisfied, and this is an exact number how satisfied they are. And it's complete.